Hey guys, welcome back to Small Doses of Insight. Before starting this video essay, I just want to put out a small disclaimer. I've only seen the first arc of the Rurouni Kenshin anime, and that was quite a long time ago. I've only seen the first episode of the legendary OVA Trusted Betrayal, and that was also a long time ago. In addition to that, I've never read the manga. And so, this video essay is purely based on the live-action movies and the research that I've done to complete this analysis. This video is going to be the first in a 4-part series, so please look forward to it. Alright dudes and dudettes, buckle up. We're diving deep into the psyche of Himura Kenshin, the legendary samurai from the 2012 Japanese flick Rurouni Kenshin. This ain't your average character study. It's a journey through the mind of a man who's as complex as trying to solve a Rubik's Cube while chugging a cold one. Spoiler alert, we're spilling all the beans, so if you haven't seen the movie, consider this your warning. Let's get this party started. Imagine being the most feared assassin in Japan, slicing through enemies like a hot knife through butter. That's Kenshin's backstory in a nutshell. Known as Hitokiri Batosai, he was the ultimate killing machine during the Bakumatsu era, leaving a trail of bodies that would make even the Grim Reaper jealous. But here's the kicker. After the war, Kenshin decides to hang up his murder boots and become a wandering samurai, vowing never to kill again. Talk about a 180-degree turn. It's like if John Wick suddenly decided to open a pet store. Let's talk about that funky sword of his, the Sakamoto or reverse blade sword. This bad boy has the sharp edge on the inside curve, making it pretty useless for killing. It's Kenshin's way of saying, I'm done with the whole murder thing. The sword symbolizes his commitment to non-violence and his desire to atone for his bloody past. Kenshin's personality is a wild mix of contradictions. On one hand, he's this soft-spoken, humble dude who wouldn't hurt a fly. He refers to himself as this one and ends his sentences with degozaru, which is like the old-school Japanese way of being super polite. But don't let that fool you. When push comes to shove, he can unleash the beast within and kick some serious butt. That gnarly cross-shaped scar on his cheek isn't just for show. It's a constant reminder of his past sins and the lives he took as Batosai. Every time he looks in the mirror, he's faced with the weight of his actions. It's like having a permanent post-it note on your face that says, don't screw up again. Kenshin's got a crew that would make any bro proud. There's Kaoru, the feisty dojo owner who gives him a place to crash and a reason to keep going. Then there's Sanosuke, the brawler with the heart of gold, and Yahiko, the kid who looks up to Kenshin like a big brother. These relationships are the glue that holds Kenshin together, giving him a sense of belonging and a reason to fight for a better future. No matter how hard he tries, Kenshin can't shake off his dark past. The Batosai persona is always lurking in the shadows, ready to take over when things get hairy. It's a constant battle between his desire for peace and the killer instincts ingrained in him. It's like trying to keep the Hulk from smashing. Sometimes you just can't help it. Kenshin's journey is all about redemption. He's haunted by the ghosts of those he killed and is on a mission to make amends. But here's the thing. No matter how many good deeds he does, he can't undo the past. It's like trying to unfry an egg. It's just impossible. First off, let's get one thing straight. Kenshin is a walking, talking trauma burrito wrapped in guilt, regret, and some of the smoothest swordplay on this side of 1860s Japan. Dude's choices are clearly driven by his past as Hitokiri Batosai, but here's where things get spicy. His trauma isn't just a liability, it's also his superpower. Kenshin's past make him hyper aware of the consequences of violence. He's like that one bro who got burned at a college party for trying to mix tequila and beer, and he learned his lesson the hard way. His vow not to kill isn't just some philosophical cherry on top. It's rooted in a deep understanding that violence always leaves a mark on the victim and the perpetrator. That awareness informs every move he makes, from how he fights with precision, efficiency, and zero fatality, to how he forms relationships cautiously but deeply. But here's the catch, that same trauma also holds him back. Kenshin is so focused on redemption and atoning for his sins that he struggles to embrace the possibility of personal happiness. His constant wandering isn't just about helping others, it's a way of punishing himself. Bro's out there denying himself some much needed R&R because he thinks he doesn't deserve it. Sound familiar? Yeah, it's like that one friend who insists on working weekends because it's the grind, man. One of the most fascinating aspects of Kenshin's character is the constant tug of war between his peaceful ideals and his inner Batosai. It's like there are two Kenshins duking it out for control. On one side, you've got peaceful Kenshin, a dude who's basically the human embodiment of can't we all just get along? He's soft-spoken, kind, and more likely to offer you a warm smile than a fist to the face. This Kinshin is the guy Kaoru sees, the one who inspires others to believe in redemption and the possibility of change. But then there's Batosai Kinshin, the cold, ruthless assassin who lives somewhere deep in his psyche waiting for the right trigger to emerge. This isn't just some alter ego he can switch off like a light. The Batosai is always there, lurking beneath the surface, and when Kenshin is pushed to his limit, whether it's protecting someone he loves or facing a life or death situation, it comes out. It's like his fight or flight response is permanently set to fight. The tension between these two sides is what makes Kenshin such a compelling character. He's constantly grappling with the fear that no matter how much good he does, he'll never fully escape the shadow of the Batosai. It's like trying to quit junk food while living next to a Taco Bell. It's always there tempting you. Alright, let's talk relationships because Kenshin's connections with others are where his character really shines. Whether it's his platonic bromances, his mentor-student dynamics, or his romantic entanglements, every relationship adds a new layer to his story. Let's be real, Kaoru is the emotional anchor Kenshin didn't know he needed. She's strong, idealistic, and not afraid to call him out on his self-sacrificial nonsense. Kaoru represents the life Kenshin secretly longs for: stability, community, and a sense of belonging. She's like that one friend who forces you to stop being a martyr and reminds you that it's okay to order dessert. But their relationship isn't without its challenges. Kenshin's reluctance to fully commit emotionally stems from his fear of bringing harm to those he cares about. It's a classic case of "it's not you, it's my unresolved assassin trauma." Every hero needs a ride or die bro, and for Kenshin, that's Sanosuke. Sano's brash, carefree attitude is the perfect counterbalance to Kenshin's introspective, guilt-ridden vibe. He's the guy who reminds Kenshin that not everything has to be so serious. But their bond goes deeper than just a bromance. Sano looks up to Kenshin as a moral compass, while Kenshin values Sano's unwavering loyalty. It's like the ultimate buddy movie dynamic, but with way more punching. Yahiko starts off as a scrappy kid with a chip on his shoulder, but under Kenshin's guidance, he grows into a capable swordsman with a strong moral code. The relationship is a classic mentor-student dynamic, but what makes it special is how Kenshin subtly pushes Yahiko to embrace his own path. Kenshin doesn't just teach Yahiko how to fight, he teaches him how to live. It's like Mr. Miyagi, but with a katana instead of wax on, wax off. Then there's Megumi, the sharp-tongued doctor with a dark past. Her relationship with Kenshin is layered with gratitude and mutual respect. She sees Kenshin as a savior, while Kenshin views her as proof that redemption is possible. They share a quiet understanding of what it means to carry the weight of past mistakes. Honestly, it's like that one time you helped your buddy move out of their ex's apartment. There's a lot of unspoken, "thanks for saving my life" energy. Here's the thing about Kenshin. His moral code is both inspiring and frustrating. On one hand, his vow to never kill is a bold and admirable stance in a world that often sees violence as the only solution. On the other hand, there are moments when you're screaming at the screen like, "dude, maybe just this once you can make an exception, please?" Kenshin's pacifism forces him to rely on creative solutions in combat, which is great because it shows how resourceful and strategic he is. But it also puts him in situations where his refusal to kill can feel like a liability. Case in point, his battles with villains like Kanryo Takeda or Jine Udo. These dudes are straight up monsters who exploit Kenshin's principles, and while it's satisfying to see him win without breaking his vow, you can't help but wonder if he's tying one hand behind his back. Ultimately, Kenshin's moral code isn't about avoiding bloodshed, it's about proving that people can change, that the cycle of violence can be broken. It's idealistic, sure, but it's also deeply personal. For Kenshin, every life he saves is a step towards atonement, even if it means risking his own. One of the most satisfying aspects of Kenshin's character arc is how he evolves from a lone wanderer to someone who actively fights for a future worth living in. At the start of the series, Kenshin is basically a nomad with no real direction. He helps people because it's the right thing to do, but he doesn't really have a stake in the world he's trying to protect. As the story progresses, we see Kenshin's priorities shift. His relationships with Kaoru, Sanosuke, and the rest of the gang give him something he's been missing: a reason to stay. By the end of the series, Kenshin isn't just fighting to atone for his past, he's fighting to build a future for the people he loves. It's like going from being the guy who crashes on his buddy's couch to actually paying rent and buying furniture. Let's not forget that Kenshin's story is deeply tied to the historical and cultural backdrop of the Meiji era. The transition from bloody chaos of the Bakumatsu to the relatively peaceful Meiji period mirrors Kenshin's own journey from assassin to protector. His struggle to reconcile his violent past with the peaceful ideals of the new era is emblematic of Japan's growing pains as it moves away from feudalism. But here's the kicker. Kenshin's refusal to kill isn't just a personal choice, It's a rejection of the old ways that glorified violence as a means to an end. He's a living symbol of the Meiji government's attempt to modernize and bring about peace, even if it means letting go of traditions that define the samurai class. It's like being the first guy in your group to quit beer pong because you're trying to grow up. Bold move, bro. Alright bros, let's go full on armchair psychology and analyze the mental gymnastics of our boy Himura Kenshin. This isn't just about sword fights, reverse blade rules, or redemption arcs anymore. We're diving deep into the mental toll of Kenshin's life choices and how they ripple through his relationships and world. First off, guilt runs Kenshin's life. It's his fuel, his burden, and honestly his reason for existing. Every step he takes as a wandering swordsman is a conscious effort to make up for all the trail of destruction he left behind during his Batosai days. Bro's out here playing 40 chess with his morality. He can't just do good things for their own sake. Every action has to serve as some kind of penance. It's like that time you accidentally broke your friend's PlayStation and spent weeks trying to act like the best buddy ever, hoping they'd forget. This guilt manifests as an almost obsessive need to help others. Kinshin isn't just a nice guy, he's a compulsively nice guy. He doesn't take breaks, he doesn't indulge in happiness for his own sake, and doesn't let himself off the hook for even a second. You think he'd go to therapy, but nah, this guy's therapy is saving strangers while slowly destroying himself. Here's the thing, Kinshin knows he's repressing a lot. His cheery demeanor is practically a shield he uses to keep others and himself from seeing the darkness he's trying to suppress. When he calls himself this one instead of using personal pronouns like I, it's more than just polite old school Japanese. It's a way of distancing himself from his actions, both past and present. It's like when I tell myself, this guy doesn't need another beer tonight to avoid saying, I need to stop drinking like a frat boy. This repression isn't healthy obviously, but Kinshin doesn't really have an outlet for it. He doesn't talk about his feelings unless someone pries it out of him. Shout out to Karu for being persistent. The result? A dude who's constantly one bad day away from spiraling into an existential crisis. Let's talk trauma because Kenshin's got enough of it to fill a Netflix miniseries. While the movie doesn't explicitly diagnose him with PTSD, obviously 19th century Japan wasn't exactly big on mental health awareness, the signs are all there. His nightmares, his hyper-awareness in combat, and his instinctual responses to danger all scream this guy's been through some stuff. Kenshin's flashbacks to his Batosai days aren't just a cinematic flair. They're moments where we see how much he's haunted by his past. Every time he fights someone who reminds him of the war like Jine, who lives for the kill, it's like someone yanked him back into that blood-soaked mindset. And here's the thing, instead of confronting these memories head-on, Kinshin buries them under layers of his non-killing code. But trauma isn't something you can just outrun. Kinshin might be fast with a sword, but even he can't escape his own mind. The flashbacks are his brain's way of saying, hey dude, we need to talk about this. And like any bro with emotional baggage, Kinshin just ignores it and keeps moving forward, hoping it'll go away. Spoiler, it doesn't. Here's the $1 million question. Is Kinshin's obsession with redemption healthy? Short answer, no. Long answer, hell no. Don't get me wrong, it's great that Kinshin wants to atone for his past, but he's taking it to a toxic extreme. Every good deed he does comes with a side of self-loathing, like he's trying to balance out the karmic scales but secretly believes they'll never tip in his favor. It's like when you go to the gym to burn off a cheat meal, but instead of one cheat meal, it's the entire McDonald's menu and a milkshake for dessert. Bro's chasing an impossible goal. What's worse is, Kenshin's belief in his own unworthiness keeps him from fully connecting with others. He'll save someone's life, but he won't let them get too close. He'll help Karu protect her dojo, but he won't let himself think he deserves to stay there. It's like he's built this mental wall around himself, and every time someone tries to climb it, he doubles down on his I'm not worthy mantra. This isn't just some self-sacrifice, it's self-sabotage. Kenshin's so focused on redeeming himself that he doesn't see how much he's already done to make the world a better place. Someone get this guy a pep talk stat. Kenshin's need to save everyone is admirable, sure, but it's also kind of a problem. Dude's got what I like to call hero syndrome. He feels like he has to fix everything, even when it's not his responsibility. Take his fight with Takeda, the corrupt businessman peddling opium. Sure, taking down a drug lord is a good thing, but let's be real, Kinshin didn't have to get involved. The stakes weren't personal for him. He got involved because he couldn't stand to see people suffer. It's like that one friend who insists on helping everyone move even when they're dealing with their own stuff. Kinshin's inability to let things slide isn't just about being a good guy. It's about proving to himself that he's better than the Batosai. But here's the problem with hero syndrome. It's unsustainable. Kenshin can't save everyone no matter how hard he tries. And every time he fails or even just struggles, it's another hit to his already fragile sense of self-worth. It's a vicious cycle and one that leaves him physically and emotionally exhausted.
分かったでござろう。拙者が人斬りだった。
そんなの知らないわ。私が出会ったのは謙信っていう流浪人よ。
Let's shift gears and talk about how Kenshin's mental state impacts his relationships because oh boy, there's a lot to unpack here. While Kenshin's kindness and selflessness make him a magnet for people who need help, his emotional baggage also creates some serious blind spots. Kaoru is the closest thing Kenshin has to a safe haven, but he's too wrapped up in his guilt to let himself fully embrace that. He cares about her deeply, bro's practically a bodyguard at this point, but he keeps her at arm's length emotionally. Why? Because he's convinced that he doesn't deserve happiness. It's like when you're crushing on someone but keep sabotaging yourself because you think you're not good enough. Except in Kenshin's case, it's 10 times more tragic. Sano, on the other hand, isn't buying Kenshin's everything's fine act. He's the guy who calls Kenshin out when he's being too hard on himself, but even Sano can't fully break through Kenshin's mental barriers. Their friendship is built on mutual respect, but there's an undercurrent of frustration. Sano wants Kenshin to see his own worth, while Kenshin just wants to keep moving forward without looking back. We can't talk about Kenshin's mental state without addressing his infamous non-killing vow. On the surface, it seems like a noble, straightforward principle, but dig a little deeper and you'll see that it's a double-edged sword, pun totally intended. Kenshin's refusal to kill isn't just about sparing lives, it's about sparing himself. Taking another life would mean acknowledging that the Batosai is still a part of him, and that's a truth Kenshin isn't ready to face. By sticking to his vow, he's trying to draw a line between who he was and who he wants to be. But here's the rub, that line isn't as clear-cut as he thinks. Every time Kenshin fights, he's walking a tightrope between his ideals and his instincts, and the mental strain is real. This internal conflict comes to a head in his battle with Jine, who forces Kenshin into a no-win situation. When Kaoru's life is on the line, Kenshin comes dangerously close to breaking his vow, and the guilt he feels afterward is palpable. It's a stark reminder that Kenshin's non-killing code isn't just a moral stance, it's a coping mechanism. And like all coping mechanisms, it's not foolproof. Finally, let's talk about how Kenshin's past as Batosai impacts his identity. No matter how far he runs or how many good deeds he does, he can't escape the fact that he was once a cold-blooded killer. And here's the thing, he doesn't want to forget. That scar on his face isn't just a mark of his past, it's a constant reminder of who he used to be and why he can never go back. But carrying that legacy is exhausting. Kenshin's past isn't just a weight on his shoulders, it's a shadow that follows him everywhere. Even when he's doing good, he's haunted by the fear that the Batosai could resurface at any moment. It's like trying to live a new life while dragging around a suitcase full of regrets. You can move forward, but you'll never be free of the baggage. So where does that leave Kenshin psychologically speaking? In a word, complicated. Dude's a walking paradox, haunted but hopeful, broken but resilient, selfless but self-sabotaging. His journey is as much about finding inner peace as it is about saving others, and that's what makes him such a compelling character. If there's one takeaway from Kenshin's mental maze, it's this. Redemption isn't about erasing the past, it's about learning to live with it. And while Kenshin might not have all the answers, he's doing his best to figure it out. Alright bros, it's time to wrap it up with one big thought-provoking question. Can someone truly escape their past, or are we all just carrying our baggage in fancier suitcases? It's a heavy one, I know, but stick with me. We've followed Kenshin through his guilt-ridden redemption arc, dissected his relationships, unpacked his PTSD, and wonder why the dude can't just chill for 5 minutes. But now let's take a step back and ask ourselves, is Kenshin actually succeeding in his quest for peace, or is he just running around in circles? Let's be real, if there's one thing Rurouni Kenshin teaches us, it's that the past has claws. And for Kenshin, those claws dig deep. His whole journey is built around the idea of atonement, trying to make up for his time as Batosai the Manslayer by being the world's nicest guy with a sword. But here's the kicker, no matter how many people he saves, no matter how many villains he takes down without killing, the dude still wakes up every morning with that cross-shaped scar staring back at him in the mirror. So here's the question for you. Is redemption even possible when you can't forgive yourself? Sure, Kenshin's got the external stuff down, he's saving lives, inspiring people, and building a community. But internally, bro's still stuck in Batosaiville, population 1. He carries the weight of every life he's ever taken like it's a backpack full of bricks. And honestly, who among us doesn't have our own version of that? Whether it's a bad breakup, a major screw up, or that time you sent a regrettable drunk text, we've all got something that lingers in the back of our minds. But here's the difference. Kenshin doesn't just carry his past, he lets it define him. His refusal to kill is less about his philosophy and more about his fear. He's so terrified of slipping back into Batosai mode that he overcompensates, living a life of constant self-denial. It's like refusing to eat pizza because you're afraid of getting heartburn. Sure, it's a solution, but it's not exactly sustainable. We love pizza too much. This brings us to the real heart of the question. Is Kinshin growing, or is he just stuck in a loop of guilt and self-sacrifice? On the surface, he's making progress. By the end of the movie series, he's got a found family, a dojo to call home, and a clearer sense of purpose. He's even allowed himself to get a little vulnerable with Kaoru, though let's not pretend the dude's winning any awards for emotional availability. But for all his outward progress, Kenshin still can't shake the feeling that he doesn't deserve happiness. And honestly, that's kinda heartbreaking. Because here's a guy who's literally changed the course of history with his actions, but he still sees himself as nothing more than a killer trying to outrun his shadow. It's like watching your buddy crush it at work but still think they're a screw up because of one bad project from 5 years ago. You just want to shake him and be like, dude, look at all the good you're doing. But Kenshin's struggle is what makes him relatable. He's not some perfect, untouchable hero. He's a guy who's trying, sometimes failing, sometimes succeeding, to move forward. And isn't that all any of us can do? Alright, let's flip the script for a second and talk about the people around Kenshin. Because here's the thing, as much as Kenshin tries to shoulder everything himself, his redemption is a team effort. From Kaoru's unwavering belief in him to Sanosuke's bro lighten up energy to Yahiko's admiration, Kenshin's growth is fueled by his relationships. And that's a powerful message in itself. You can't escape your past alone. You need people to remind you of who you are now. Take Kaoru for example. She sees Kenshin not as Batosai the manslayer, but as Himura Kenshin, the man who protects others without asking for anything in return. Her faith in him is unshakable even when he can't see his own worth. She's like the friend who texts you at 2 a.m. to tell you you're awesome after you've had a bad day. It's not just support, it's a lifeline. Even Sanosuke with his rough and tumble demeanor plays a huge role in keeping Kenshin grounded. Sano doesn't let Kenshin wallow in his guilt. He calls him out, drags him into fights, and reminds him that sometimes you just gotta punch your problems in the face, metaphorically of course. It's the kind of tough love we all need from time to time. And let's not forget Yahiko, who looks up to Kenshin like a big brother. Yahiko's faith in Kenshin's goodness is a constant reminder that people can change. Watching Yahiko grow under Kenshin's mentorship is like proof that the dude's effort aren't for nothing. It's like when your little cousin finally stops spamming memes and starts sending you actual texts. It's small, but it matters. So what do we, as the audience, take away from Kenshin's journey? Beyond the epic sword fights and tear-jerking moments, Kenshin's story forces us to reflect on our own lives. What's your Batosai? What's the thing in your past that you're trying to escape or make up for? And more importantly, how do you deal with it? For me, my Batosai is probably my tendency to procrastinate. Shout out to the 15 tabs I have open right now. I keep telling myself I'll get better tomorrow, but half the time I'm just spinning my wheels. Watching Kenshin struggle with his own inner demons make me realize that growth isn't about flipping a switch. It's about showing up every day even when it's hard and trying to do better. Kenshin also challenges us to rethink what redemption really means. Is it about erasing the past, or is it about building a better future? If you ask Kenshin, it's the latter. He knows he can't undo what he's done, but he's determined to make sure his actions moving forward are worth something. And honestly, that's a pretty solid philosophy to live by. Here's the thing, even though Rurouni Kenshin gives us a satisfying conclusion, Kenshin's story isn't really over. Redemption isn't a one and done deal, it's an ongoing process. And while the movies end on a hopeful note, you get the sense that Kenshin still has work to do, both externally and internally. So here's where I leave you with one final question. If you were Kenshin, would you ever forgive yourself? Could you move past the mistakes you've made, or would you let them define you? It's not an easy question, but it's what makes it worth asking. Kenshin might not have all the answers, but his journey reminds us that the act of trying, of moving forward, even when it's messy and complicated, is what really matters. At the end of the day, Kenshin's story isn't just about swords, scars, and redemption. It's about the messy, beautiful, frustrating process of being human. It's about wrestling with your past, embracing your flaws, and finding courage to keep going even when the odds are stacked against you. When you strip it all down, Kenshin is the kind of guy we all wish we could be, flawed but striving for something better. He's not perfect, but he's relentlessly committed to his ideals even when it's hard. His journey is one of redemption, growth, and learning to forgive himself, a lesson we all could use. So here's the challenge, bro. Take a page out of Kenshin's book. Face your past, embrace your present, and build a future you're proud of. And if you stumble along the way, well, just remember, even the best samurai fall down sometimes. Thanks everyone for watching this video. If you enjoyed what you saw, please don't forget to like the video and subscribe for more content like this. Also, be sure to check out my other videos for more insight on other dramas and shows. Your support means a lot to me and it helps me grow this channel. If you have any thoughts, questions, or suggestions for future videos, please drop them in the comments down below. Again, thank you for watching this video and I'll see you next time.